Hey everybody, Donkey Storm here, and today we're going to take a look at some of the upcoming changes, patch 9.2, specifically the ability to equip 2 Legendaries and the addition of tier sets. So we'll talk about how I think that's going to affect the Guardian Druid spec, and as always, if you guys like the video, give it a thumbs up, and please subscribe to see more WoW content from me in the future. Okay, so we're just going to hang out by the Moonwell here today in the Dream Grove and talk some Druid stuff. We're going to start off with the addition of tier sets, or I guess the re-addition of tier sets after they were removed way back in the beginning of BFA. So if you never played with tier sets before, basically the way they work is you get different pieces of gear from the same set, and as you collect enough of them, you start to get bonuses for equipping multiple pieces of gear. So typically the way it works is there's going to be a bonus for equipping 2 pieces of the set and a bonus for equipping 4 pieces of the set. So what we've got here on screen is the 2 and 4 set bonus for Guardian Druid. I'm just going to talk a little bit about what I think this means for the spec. Are we still going to be in a good place moving forward? And with definitely a bias toward Mythic Pluses, that's where I spend most of my time on my Druid. So the Druid 2 set bonus is going to be Architect's Design, which means that every time you cast Barkskin, you're going to gain Berserk for 4 seconds. Now, the first thing, I'm going to operate under the assumption that this also applies to taking the Incarnation talent, which pretty much everybody takes. So we're going to operate under the assumption that this means we get 4 seconds of Incarn every time you cast Barkskin. My initial thought with this was that it didn't seem that great, because 4 seconds of Incarn every minute didn't seem like that much. But then when I thought about what the practical uses of this were going to be, it made more sense, and it actually seemed pretty good. So if you imagine casting Barkskin at the beginning of a big pull that you don't have Incarn for, that's 4 seconds of really great threat generation, building up at least somewhat of a shield through your Ursuk's Fury Remembered Legendary, and the synergy that we'll talk about in a second with obviously the 4 set bonus that's going to kick in here too. You're going to have some really nice threat generation, and you're going to have some nice survivability through the combination of your Barkskin on top of the shield you generate from Ursuk's Fury Remembered. So I actually think this is pretty good. Snap aggro is something that Guardian struggles with, and the main way that we overcome that has typically been the Karain Soulbind and the ability First Strike that allows us to generate a little bit more snap aggro at the beginning of a pull. Well, with this, we may not need that as much, which has some maybe further reaching repercussions for the spec. For example, maybe we don't need to be Night Fae anymore, or won't have to rely on Karain as much. So my initial thought was 4 seconds of Incarn every minute doesn't seem that impactful. Then when I thought about that, the ability you have of choosing when that 4 seconds happens actually seems pretty good, and might open up some other options for Guardian. I also think it's worth mentioning that this could mean that we're going to start taking the Toughest Bark conduit that reduces the cooldown on Barkskin to kind of align with this 2 set bonus as well. Now, if we look at the 4 set Architect's Aligner, which is going to be while Berserked, or again, we're assuming during Incarn, you radiate 45% of your attack power as cosmic damage to nearby enemies, and heal yourself for 61% of attack power every 1 second. So what this is really doing is it's making our strengths stronger. The strongest thing about Guardian Druid right now is Incarn with Ursuk's Fury Remembered. Now we're going to add this sort of damage radiation to that. We're going to do even more damage during that time. We're going to be healing ourselves, which nice, maybe not even necessary, since you're not really taking that much damage during that time anyway. But now if we combine that with the 2 set, my assumption is that when you activate your 4 second Incarn with Barkskin, you're also going to get your 4-piece bonus during that brief incarn window. Even more snap aggro at the beginning of a pull, more damage, more survivability. So when we start to think of it along those lines, I think this is actually pretty good. It's making our strongest suit stronger. So some of our more weak areas like single target damage, this isn't really going to address anything like that, but it is going to take our strongest point and buff it up that much more. So after I kind of thought about what this all means, I'm pretty excited to give this a try. So PTR actually went live today, but the servers aren't up yet. So hopefully down the line we'll get some gameplay to show you guys of what this actually looks like in action. So with that, let's move on a little bit here and talk about double legendaries and what that's going to mean for Guardian. So let's talk about the ability to equip 2 legendaries. The way this is going to work is we can equip 1 regular legendary plus 1 covenant specific legendary. Now, the way things have been going with Guardian Druid all Shadowlands long, it's really hard for me to imagine that we're going to be equipping anything other than Ursex's Fury Remembered. So the question becomes, what will be the Covenant-specific legendary we equip? Well, right now, I would say the majority of key-pushing Guardian Druids are Night Fae. The Night Fae-specific Covenant legendary convokes cooldown by 50%, as well as its duration by 25%, so making it shorter cooldown, a little bit less effective. However, it has an increased chance to use an exceptional spell or ability like Full Moon. I'm not crazy about the idea of running this legendary simply because at times I almost find it difficult to find times to use Convoke as is on a 2-minute cooldown. So I don't feel like I'm going to gain a whole lot on having it on an even shorter one. I think this is going to mean using Convoke defensively more often, which generally is considered bad. However, I don't think it's as bad as people sometimes make it out to be. Sometimes those defensive Convokes can actually really save you in a pinch. So I'm not going to completely trash this legendary yet, but I'm not super excited about it either. I would just as soon have a longer cooldown and even stronger Convoke rather than a shorter one. So I'm not entirely sold on that one yet. Unbridled Swarm for the Necrolords is really hard to speak to. I've never played with it personally, and I haven't really ever seen Necrolord Guardian played at all, so it's hard for me to imagine that this is all of a sudden going to become Abyss Legendary, but you never know. Sinful Hysteria, I have toyed with. I have it because I have a balance spec, which is obviously nice for damage, for just pure damage, which, may... damage is obviously a big deal, especially pushing really high keys. I don't know if it's going to be enough for that to, overtake Night Fae. And then the one I actually find most interesting is actually the Kyrian ability, Kindred Affinity. I actually see some practical use here. So the way this works is you basically pick someone else in your party that you put this buff on, this bond on, and based on their covenant, you gain a particular stat bonus, and you can see what those stat bonuses are listed here. And then when you empower the bond, the bonus is doubled. So there's actually some use there. You can kind of simp for a particular DPS in your group, or you can just use it as gaining extra versatility for yourself or whatever stat you may want to stack. So I actually see some use there, and this plus the 2-set Bark Skin ability makes me wonder if we might see a bit of a move away from Night Fae, since we won't be relying on First Strike for that snap aggro anymore. Maybe the Celestial Spirits legendary feels a little underwhelming. And maybe we see a little bit more of a move toward Kyrian. Kyrian's not too bad. You get the Kyrian file, which is really nice to remove bleeds, great during necrotic week. And I mean, we can switch covenants now, so this is not like the locked-in choice that it once was, where we would need to pick Night Fae or Kyrian. We could, in theory, as I understand it, get all of these and mix and match in any way that we want, as well as, you know, we have Torghast, basically unlimited runs now. So, but just thinking out loud, I'm wondering if we're going to see a little bit of a move toward Kyrian here in the future. So with PTR coming up in a few days, I'm hoping to get some actual gameplay with these things, try them out, see what they feel like. So stay tuned for that. And as always, guys, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button to see more content from me in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.